I will begin this record as I have begun every sanctioned report since my initiation into the blessings of the machine god, clear, structured, logical. But logic is a thin armor, and I have begun to suspect that something beneath it vibrates like a cog spinning loose inside a sacred engine. My name is Magos Explorator Severian Halix, ordained vessel of the Omnissiah, servant of the quest for knowledge. I speak now from Research Station Epsilon 9, positioned upon the volcanic world of Caligra, in the Gathalamor subsector. The installation is Mechanicus-built, steel, sacred sealant compounds, incense-venting shrines to the machine god in every corridor, but the world beneath us is no silent host. For 63 cycles, we have monitored an energy pulse from deep within Caligra's mantle. It does not match geological pressure, tectonic activity, nor the residual signatures of pre-imperial mining. The frequency is too regular, too deliberate, a waveform repeating in perfect intervals, every 81 seconds, 81, 9 times 9, a number of ritual significance. I recorded the data without comment, as protocol dictates. I did not theorize. I did not speculate. Knowledge without process is blasphemy. But today, the pulse changed. At 0300 station time, the waveform collapsed into silence, not gradual decay, instant termination. Every instrument reported absolute zero activity. The station's internal vox hymns continued, air recyclers continued. The reactor core continued humming in sacred alignment. Then the silence spread. I do not mean auditory silence. The servitors did not cease their chants. The station alarms did not sound. Voices continued. Boots still struck deck plate, yet something, deeper than hearing, went quiet. A kind of silence inside the mind. My internal cogitator implants ceased their hum. My binharic prayers, constantly whispering across neuronic subchannels, fell still. The machine spirits that dwell within me, extensions of the Omnissiah's wisdom, became quiet as tombs. For the first time since I received holy augmentation, my thoughts belonged to me alone. It was terrifying. A tech priest is not meant to be alone inside their own skull. I attempted to reinitialize my neural relay, but instead of the familiar rising chorus of binharic computations, another sensation crept through me. A whisper, foreign, soft, patient. Not words, not yet, but a presence, watching. I composed myself. Fear is a biological artifact, obsolete, unnecessary. Fear is for flesh, and flesh is weak. I walked from my personal sanctum into Corridor Theta, where 2 Skitarii guards stood vigil beside a shrine of polished brass, depicting the Omnissiah with cog-shaped halo. Their helmets swiveled toward me. Their glowing visors pulsed once in acknowledgement. But they did not speak. Neither did I. For some reason, speech felt dangerous. As though words were doorways something else could hear through. I continued toward the central control chamber, calculating probabilities, excluding them, recalculating. Either system-wide cogitator cascade failure, improbable, no alarms. Atmospheric chemical agent, improbable, no symptoms. Warp disturbance, possible. The third possibility brought biological nausea. I suppressed it. Inside the control chamber, Tech Acolyte Jern was seated before a vast display of Auspex returns. He was motionless, head bowed, as though in prayer. His mechadendrite arms hovered in mid-air, frozen, mid-function. Acolyte. I spoke clearly, firmly. His head lifted. His eyes were bleeding. Thin rivulets of red flowed down his cheeks as though tears. But he was smiling. No, not smiling. Grinning in a way that exposed too many teeth. "The signal has stopped, Magos," he whispered. The whisper struck my ears like a physical blow, too loud, too close, echoing inside my thoughts, where memory should be. "No," I said. "The pulse terminated. We will identify the cause. Begin." Jern cut me off. It ended because it heard us. I took one step backward, not from fear, from calculation. Jern stood slowly, vertebrae cracking like overtensioned gears. His voice changed, tone widening as though spoken through a metallic resonator. It has been beneath us longer than empires, longer than your god of iron. It has listened to our songs. And now that we have called, it answers. He lifted his hand. Blood pooled in his palm where his nails had torn into flesh. He drew upon the screen beside him. I watched, cold, analytical, even as revulsion tried to claw its way up the remnants of my organic spine. He traced a symbol, a spiral, but not a true spiral. The lines overlapped in ways Euclidean geometry does not permit. I tried to pass it. My ocular implants attempted to map curvature and failed, hard-failed feedback pain lancing behind my left eye. The symbol moved, not figuratively, not metaphorically. The ink of blood shifted, as though under influence of unseen force. The lines tightened into new shapes, then loosened, repeating, breathing. Something alive. Jern's voice dropped to a whisper again. It is coming through. I lunged forward, tearing the data screen from its mount, smashing it against the floor. Sparks showered the deck, acrid smoke burning my augmented nostrils. The blood mark flickered, then vanished. I seized Jern by the collar of his robe. What did you commune with? What did you invoke? He only laughed. Not the laugh of madness, the laugh of joy. The station alarms finally sounded. Not screeching klaxons, hymnal tones. The machine spirits were singing. Not in Binharik, not in any Mechanicus-recognized liturgy. In praise. A great vibration shook the floor. The pulse returned, but no longer deep beneath the planet. It came from inside the station, inside the walls. The lights flickered, and for a moment measured in heartbeats and processor cycles, the metal surfaces along. Corridor theta shifted, as though exhaling. The steel bulged, relaxed, recoiled, as though breathing. The whisper in my mind resolved into words, spoken in a voice that was not voice, vibration, but not sound. Severian Helix, I hear you. I froze. It knew my designation. It had been listening, not just to us, to me. Every instinct I retained from my pre-augmented life screamed to run. But there is nowhere to run when the walls themselves listen. I released Jern. He fell to his knees. Blood still dripped. He did not fight. He did not plead. He only bowed, hands pressed to the living metal beneath us. The whisper returned. Come. You have called me. Now attend. I am Magos of the machine god. I do not kneel. I do not tremble. I do not believe in demons. But something is here, and it knows my name. I left Acolyte Jern kneeling in silence, blood pooling beneath his hands. I did not attempt to restrain him. Restraint implies transgression, and I did not yet understand what transgression had taken place. The machine god teaches that what is unknown must first be observed, then measured, then understood. But understanding now felt like a receding horizon, each step forward widening the distance rather than closing it. I activated my internal Vox link, transmitting across all secured Mechanicus channels. Station Epsilon 9 status alert. Primary systems interference ongoing. Assemble in central strategium. This is Magos Halix. The transmission should have echoed in my skull with the layered harmonics of machine spirits and encrypted logic resonance. Instead, my voice reverberated back to me as an echo, as though spoken inside a cavern, not along digital channels. The silence that followed was total. No confirmations, no Binharik acknowledgements, not even static. I shut down the link manually. There was no protocol for a silence that felt like listening. I made my way towards central strategium. The corridors were still lit by lumen strips, but their color temperature had shifted. Cool mechanical white replaced by a warmer, flesh-like amber. It pulsed faintly, regular, rhythmic, almost synchronized to a heartbeat, though impossible to determine whose. When I passed the shrine of the Omnissiah, I paused. The cog halo around the machine god's brass visage had changed. Not physically, no deformation of matter, but perceptually, the geometry seemed subtly different. The sacred radial symmetry now appeared slightly off balance, the outer edges bending inward like petals curling in heat. I checked my ocular calibration. Perfect. The distortion was not internal. Something in the environment was changing. I continued. Turning into the Strategium antechamber, I encountered the first of the Imperial Guard detachment, Sergeant Varlan, 44th Mortarion Line. Hardened infantry, grim, unsentimental. His lasgun was raised, barrel trained on the entrance before I spoke. "Stand down," I said. He did not lower the weapon. His voice rasped, dry as static. "Something's wrong with the station, Magos." "Clarify," I instructed. "We hear things," he answered. "Not voices, not thoughts, footsteps, breathing, like the walls are close." His men flanked him, 6 troopers, armor scuffed from months of routine post-landing drills. Their helmets were sealed. Their eyes were wide behind polarized lenses. Fear is something I am trained to read. In humans, it is predictable, quantifiable, but this fear was focused, as if pointed at an unseen target. "Any casualties?" I asked. Varlan hesitated, just for a breath. "But enough. 3 missing," he said. "No signs of forced entry, no bodies, no blood. They were just gone. Gone. The worst possible word. Not dead, not slain, not taken. Gone meant the rules had already broken. I gestured for them to follow. We entered the Strategium proper. The hololithic table was active, though I had not activated it. Light flickered across the room in slow tidal pulses as planetary schematics rotated. Too slow, as if the projector were playing backtime itself at half speed. Tech Adept Maren stood there. She was one of the youngest of my cohort, a recent inductee, still retaining over 68% biological composition. She had always spoken quickly, eagerly, a sign of her incomplete transcendence. Now she was silent. Her eyes were fixed on the projection. "Maren," I said. She did not respond. Sergeant Varlan moved, stepping into her field of view. Her head turned toward him, but her eyes lagged, as though her pupils followed a fraction of a second late. Then she spoke. "It's in the signal," she whispered. "What signal?" Varlan snapped. "The one beneath the crust, the one we measured, the one we recorded." Her lips trembled. The signal wasn't just being transmitted. It was listening back. I approached slowly. "You access the waveform archive." She nodded. I ran it through auditory translation, just to analyze harmonic possibility, standard procedure, standard research, standard operation. Her breathing quickened. It spoke. I felt the whisper at the base of my skull again. Not sound, proximity. "What did it say?" I asked. She did not answer with words. She began humming. The melody was simple. 5 notes ascending, 5 descending, looping endlessly. But the sound was wrong. The pitch was not stable. The tone bent, sliding between frequencies in ways that violated resonance rules. It was not a song meant for the human voice. Varlan's men shifted uneasily, rifles rising. "Stop the sound," I said. Maren did not stop. The projection shifted. Not through mechanical input. There was no hand near the interface. The hololith reshaped itself. Contours of the planet shifted inward. Caverns and tunnels bloomed like roots. Then, a shape appeared. At the core, not geological, not architectural. A form composed of curved symmetry and impossible angles. A shape resembling the symbol Jern had drawn in blood. Maren's humming broke. Her voice cracked. She gasped as though surfacing from deep water. "It woke up," she whispered. "We woke it." A trooper to Varlan's right began hyperventilating. "Throne, preserve us!" Varlan slammed his rifle butt into the floor. "Magos, orders." Orders. Doctrine requires containment first, analysis second, eradication third. But containment implies boundaries. There were no boundaries here. I looked to Maren. "What is the entity?" I asked. She shook her head, tears forming. "No human language can hold its name," she said, "but it used mine." A scraping sound reverberated through the ducts overhead. Not mechanical, not animal. Something dragging itself through steel. Varlan motioned his squad into formation. Rifles tracked the ceiling. The noise passed overhead, slow and deliberate, like something considering footstep patterns rather than following them. Then, a thud. One deck above, a scream followed. Human, short, cut off halfway. Varlan was already moving. "Second deck, move!" The soldiers sprinted. Maren stumbled toward me, shaking. "What do we do?" she choked. I placed my hand on her shoulder, organic nerves interfacing with augmetic plating. "We observe," I said. But inside, beneath titanium calm, I understood. We were no longer researchers. We were witnesses, and witnesses do not survive to report what they see. We reached the second deck. The corridor was empty, but the symbol was there, painted across the wall in a substance too dark to be rust and too thick to be paint. Still moving, still breathing, and beneath it, the shadow of something standing just out of sight. The symbol on the wall pulsed once, like a heartbeat. The corridor lamps flickered in synchrony, as though the station itself were breathing in time with it. It should not have been possible. Symbols do not pulse. Walls do not breathe. But the station had ceased to obey the Omnissiah's laws the moment the signal stopped. Sergeant Varlan signaled his squad forward. They advanced in a cautious, staggered line, muzzles sweeping the corridor, steps quiet, breath held. Trained soldiers, yes, but their fear tasted thick in the air. Even through my respirator units, I could smell it. Sweat, adrenaline, and something else. Something old. Maren stood beside me, her hands clasped so tightly the bones whitened beneath her skin. "It's changing," she whispered. "The symbol is aligning itself." "With what?" I asked. She did not answer. I suspected she did not know the answer, or feared speaking it aloud would make it real. One of the troopers approached the symbol. "Looks like burn residue," he muttered. His voice cracked, like something got cooked onto the metal. "No," I corrected. "There is no carbonization pattern. This substance is extrinsic, introduced, organic." Maren gagged at the word. Organic. The walls had been metal. Now, they were something else. Something between metal and flesh. Something becoming. The trooper reached out. "Do not touch." Too late. His glove brushed the symbol. The wall shuddered, not metaphorically, not visually. It physically rippled, like the skin of a drum struck from the inside. The trooper staggered backward, rifle clattering to the floor. "Contact! Contact! Something!" His voice dissolved into a wet gurgle. We watched. We watched because there was nothing else to do. His glove fused to his hand. The material, flesh, fabric, polymer, all became one substance. His arm began to stretch, drawn toward the wall. His shoulder dislocated. Then his ribs shifted beneath his armor, skin tightening over expanding bone. He screamed. Maren covered her ears. Varlan shouted orders. The other troopers opened fire. Lashbolts struck the wall and did nothing. No scorching, no displacement. The symbol absorbed the energy, growing brighter, lines tightening into a more perfect, impossible geometry. The trooper's scream ended as his jaw split, bone and tendon unraveling into strands. He did not die so much as unravel, the body taken apart into thin filaments that were drawn into the wall as though being reabsorbed. The symbol brightened. It was feeding. We fell back. We had to. Not tactically, instinctually. There is a point beyond which logic no longer commands motion. The flesh remembers ancient fears, the kind of fear that existed long before machines, or language, or prayer. The corridor twisted. Not physically, Space itself became untrustworthy. The floor lengthened. The ceiling bowed inward, narrowing the passage, pulling us deeper instead of back. My ocular implants jittered, attempting to re-stabilize perspective. Maren clutched my robe. Magos, the station isn't being corrupted. It's being reshaped. To what purpose? Varlan snapped. Her voice trembled. A temple. The word struck harder than any physical blow. Temples are built for one purpose only: worship, and worship requires a god. We regrouped inside the auxiliary cogitator chamber. Doors sealed. Locking runes engaged. The machine spirits hummed with fear. No, not fear, anticipation. I accessed the station logs. The waveform data was still stored, but the data was no longer numbers. The files had rewritten themselves. They now contained scripture, not Mechanicus liturgy, not imperial catechism. Something older, written in a language my cognition augments could barely parse, glyphs layered on glyphs, meanings fractal, recursive. I attempted translation. The result was a single phrase: "We were never alone beneath the stone." Maren exhaled sharply. There was a civilization here once, pre-imperial, pre-human. They didn't die out. They were... She stopped speaking, because she realized the truth. They did not leave ruins. They left instructions. Varlan paced the chamber, every movement sharp, controlled. "We need to evacuate. Call for evac, shuttle, orbital strike, exterminatus if needed." I opened a channel. Static. Then, something else. A voice. Soft, gentle, as though speaking from inches behind my ear. "There is nowhere to go." The lights dimmed. Footsteps approached from the corridor outside. Slow, rhythmic, confident. Varlan signaled his squad into firing positions. The door slid open. A figure entered. Acolyte Jern. Only, no, not Jern. His form remained upright, but his body was subtly wrong, proportions slightly elongated, joints bending at angles just barely impossible. His skin was pale, translucent, like wax warmed by candle flame. Beneath it, veins pulsed in time with the symbol's rhythm. He smiled. "There is no need for fear," he said. His voice was layered, Jern's tone overlaid with something vast and resonant. "We invited it, we called to it, and it has heard." Varlan raised his rifle. "Do not move." Jern did not stop. He continued forward, slow and steady, as though gravity itself answered to him. "We sought knowledge," he said. "We sought understanding, and we have been granted both, not as servants, not as slaves, as witnesses to the return of the first dawn." The words struck something inside me, something that remembered old Mechanicus heresies whispered beneath static. "Who speaks through you?" I asked. Jern smiled wider, beyond human, beyond flesh. "The prince of the silent deep, the one beneath the mantle, the first thought in darkness. You named it anomaly. It names you listener." The symbol on the wall behind him brightened. The chamber temperature rose. Maren fell to her knees. Varlan stepped forward, rifle steady. "I am giving you a final warning." Jern tilted his head, expression curious. "You speak as though you retain control of your world." His body split, not violently, elegantly. His torso opened like unfurling petals, revealing a radiance that had no color, no heat, no form. The troopers opened fire, but the last bolts curved mid-air, bending toward the symbol instead of the target. The warp was here, fully, no longer whisper, no longer echo. Presence. I understood then. The ritual had already begun, not one we performed, one we completed simply by observing. The signal was never a message, it was a summoning, and we had answered. Jern, what remained of him, spoke one final phrase: "Attend the awakening," and the walls began to open. The walls did not open like doors or panels. They unfolded. Sheets of metal flexed like muscle, fibers of alloy stretching, thinning, reshaping into arching ribs. The corridor was becoming a throat, and we stood inside it. The transformation emitted no grinding of gears, no sparks, no screeching metal. Instead, it occurred in near silence, only a soft, wet sound, like someone breathing beneath water. Varlan did not wait for command. Fall back, defensive position, move. The squad retreated in practiced formation, covering angles, barrels tracking every shifting surface. But retreat did nothing now. Distance had stopped being a trustworthy concept. The hallway behind us no longer led back to the strategium. It led somewhere else, a space that seemed longer than should exist inside the station. The floor subtly curved downward, though gravity still tugged level. We were being guided, herded. Maren clutched her data slate to her chest. It's shaping the station into a pathway, a corridor of approach, a procession hall. A temple, I finished. Her eyes were wide, brilliant with horror. Yes, we moved because not moving would have meant kneeling, and none of us were ready for that yet. The walls continued to shift beside us. Texture formed where there had been smooth steel, patterns like scripture, lines repeating in fractal spirals. My visual implants tried to translate. They failed. The symbols were not language, they were instructions. Instructions written for the matter of the world itself, telling it what to become. One of the troopers broke formation. The fear finally cracked him. "This is wrong. Throne, save us. This is wrong. This is..." He bolted. He ran blindly down the shifting corridor, boots striking metal that pulsed faintly beneath him. "Trooper, return!" Varlan barked, but the man was already too far, his scream echoing. We saw what happened next. The corridor narrowed around him. Not quickly, not violently, simply, inevitably. The walls closed inward like a fist, not crushing, more like molding clay. His scream became muffled, then stopped entirely. When the walls drew back again, there was no trace of him, no blood, no fabric, no bone. He had been incorporated. Varlan did not swear. He did not shout. He simply tightened his grip on his rifle and spoke through clenched teeth. "We keep moving. We do not touch the walls. We do not break formation again. Am I understood?" The squad acknowledged in grim unison. We continued. The corridor widened as we approached what should have been the central reactor tower. But instead of the tall cylindrical chamber of machine sanctums and plasma flow lines, we saw something vast. It was not a room. It was a void. An enormous hollow space that should not have fit inside the station's external dimensions. There was no floor at the center. Instead, a deep well descended into absolute darkness, layered with faint, shifting color, like viewing a nebula through a tear in reality. Suspended above the void was the symbol, now expanded to colossal scale, hundreds of meters across, formed from glowing strands of metal, bone, and flickering energy. It rotated slowly, though the movement was not physical. It rotated in perception, in meaning. We were not looking at a symbol. We were looking at a gate. The whisper in my skull resonated again. "You approach. Do not fear the threshold." Maren began to cry silently. Not sobbing, just tears sliding down her cheeks without expression, like her body remembered grief while her mind could not process it. Varlan scanned the perimeter. "We need defensive positioning, cover arcs, secure elevation." "There is no elevation," I said. He looked at me sharply, and I realized I had spoken without consciously choosing to. The whisper had shaped my voice. I steadied myself. Focus, thought, precision, ritual. I accessed the noospheric overlay of the environment. What I saw nearly broke the augmented lattice of my mind. The reactor core had not been replaced. It had been rewritten. The plasma conduits, once designed to route controlled suns, were now channeling warp resonance, shaped through geometry no Mechanicus doctrine would tolerate. The heart of the station was now a shrine core, a convergence, a summoning vessel. The signal had not awakened something beneath the planet. The signal had invited it, and now the station itself served as its birth chamber. A sound rose from below, a pitch so low I felt it in my bones before hearing it through my auditory implants. The void pulsed in time with the sound. My chest tightened. My prosthetic lungs stalled, then restarted with a shudder. The warp presence was closer now. No longer whisper. No longer distant. Near. So very near. Varlan positioned his squad along the ledge. Maren sank to her knees beside me, staring into the void. "It's not entering," she said. "It's already here. It just hasn't finished arriving yet." I nodded, because I knew she was correct. The summoning was not incomplete. We were. Footsteps echoed behind us. Slow, confident. I did not need to turn to know who approached. Acolyte Jern, or the thing wearing him, walked toward the ledge. His limbs no longer matched human articulation. His movements flowed like liquid inside fabric. "You have reached the heart," he said, though his voice was layered with dozens of tones, some too deep to be sound at all. "The vessel is nearly formed. The prince ascends." Varlan raised his weapon. "Stay back." Jern smiled with something that was not a mouth. "Your weapons answer to forces born of order. Order is no longer present." He extended his hand toward the void. The symbol bright gate pulsed. Colors changed. Shadows bent toward him. I realized then that Jern was not a servant. He was a conduit. Varlan fired. Not at Jern, at the gate. A last-bolt struck one of the rotating beams of light and, for a moment, the entire structure shuddered. A ripple of force radiated outward. The void roared, the sound of eternity breathing in. And something began to emerge. Not fully, not yet, but enough for the shape of its silhouette to form in the darkness below. Something vast, something crowned, something waiting to be born. And we were standing at its cradle. The silhouette rising from the void did not have a defined shape. At first, it resembled a mass of shadow pulling itself upward, but then the shadow resolved into something closer to anatomy, jointed, towering, crowned with horns, or spines or something beyond either. The darkness was not an absence of light, but the presence of something deeper than darkness itself, a void that noticed us. Maren's breathing turned shallow. "It's not fully here yet. It's testing the boundary." "Testing for what?" Varlan asked. "For weakness," I answered. "Not hers, not the station's, ours." The central chamber floor shifted, forming pathways across the void. Not solid walkways, more like strands of coiled matter, braided into something that held shape only while observed. The instant I blinked, the structure changed subtly. Observation was not passive here. Observation was participation. Acolyte Jern stepped to the precipice. His arms hung loose, like joints had partly dissolved. The skin across his face pulled tight around a widened, ecstatic smile. "The prince rises through faith," he said. "It was sealed beneath the world by those who feared it. But time erodes memory, and memory erodes chains." Maren spoke, voice shaking. "What was sealed? What is it?" Jern turned his head with a motion too smooth, too controlled, as though physics had been given permission to look away for the briefest instant. "Once, long before the Imperium, before the Eldar even named their gods, there were entities that did not rule the warp, but were the warp. They were thought forms made flesh, echoes of the first terror that existed before stars formed." His voice deepened. "This is one of their heirs." Varlan took a step forward, rifle ready, jaw locked in a soldier's refusal to acknowledge the impossible. "Why here? Why this place? Why this planet?" Jern gestured at the void. The chamber pulsed around him in response. "Because this is where it was worshipped, and worship leaves scars." The void creature shifted again. Its shape refined. Long arms, torso, the suggestion of wings folded close. Its fingers, if they were fingers, extended outward, tapering into fractal branches. And the walls responded. The shrine core pulsed with a steady rhythm, 81 beats. I recognized it instantly. The same interval as the original geothermal pulse, the signal we had monitored. Not an energy fluctuation, not seismic activity, a heartbeat. We had listened to a god's pulse. We had charted its rhythms. We had synchronized to it. And by observing it, we had invited it. One of Varlan's troopers began to mutter prayers under his breath. Throne of Terror, Emperor protect, Emperor protect, Emperor. The words dissolved. His mouth moved, but no sound came out. His voice had been taken. Maren clutched my robe. Margos, is this what chaos is? Is this what the warp wants? No, I said, though I felt no certainty. Chaos does not want. Chaos does not desire. Chaos is. But this was different. Chaos was unpredictable, chaotic. This thing was purposeful. The void silhouette raised its head, or what I assumed was its head. I saw dozens of eyes, then none, then faces, then none. The form shifted faster than my mind could contextualize. The shrine chamber temperature rose. My augmetic lungs compensated, but my remaining biological tissue prickled and flushed. The air smelled like incense and blood and molten memory. Another trooper snapped. He dropped his rifle. He walked forward, not in panic, in devotion. Varlan grabbed him. "Trooper, stand down." The trooper didn't even look at him. His eyes were glassy, pupils blown wide. "It calls," he said. "It remembers my name." Varlan tried to restrain him, but the trooper tore free with strength disproportionate to his build. He sprinted toward the void. Maren screamed. Varlan lunged, too slow. The trooper reached the ledge and leapt. The void caught him. Not gravity, not impact, just absence. His body did not fall, it simply ceased. The shrine chamber pulsed brighter. Jern spread his arms in exultation. "Every offering born of choice strengthens the bridge. The prince requires willing sacrifice to complete its form." Varlan raised his rifle. This time the shot hit Jern directly. The bolt did not pierce him, it entered him, like firing into liquid. Jern's form rippled, absorbing the energy. The last shot's power diffused throughout his body, illuminating veins and bone inside him for a fraction of a second. Then the glow settled into his eyes. He looked transfigured, not healed, amplified. "You cannot harm what has already passed from flesh to truth," he said. Varlan did not lower his weapon, but he did not fire again. The void creature shifted once more, and something like a voice emanated from it. Not sound, but an idea projected into every mind present. One more sacrifice. I realized, suddenly, terribly, what the ritual required. Not a death, a willingness. Chaos feeds on permission. Maren crumpled beside me, shaking. "I don't want to die. I don't want to die. I don't want..." I grabbed her shoulders, forced her gaze to mine. My voice, quiet, steady, mechanized. "You do not need to want to die. You only need to refuse to surrender." She nodded, but her eyes were unfocused. Varlan stepped between us and the void, stance squared, weapon raised. "If this thing wants a sacrifice," he growled, "it will choke on mine." Jern smiled, almost pitying. "It does not want your life, Sergeant. It wants your belief that it should have it." And that was the pivot point. The warp did not force, it coaxed. The void pulsed again. One more. The shrine core throbbed. All of us felt the pull, the desire to step forward, to offer, to belong. Maren swayed. I held her upright. But Varlan's breath hitched. He wavered. His will, so strong until now, fractured. He stepped toward the void. Just one step. I reached for him, but the floor shifted beneath us, the chamber reconfigured, and suddenly, the sacrifice chose itself. The warp did not need to take. It simply waited, and something inside Varlan opened. His face went calm, peaceful, resolved. "I see now," he said, voice empty of fear. "I understand. We were always meant to..." He stepped into the void. There was no scream, only silence. and the silhouette grew. Sergeant Varlan did not fall into the void. He was taken by it. His form dissolved not into darkness, but into something like memory, color, heat, sound, drawn inward, unwoven thread by thread, until nothing remained but the echo of his final breath. The chamber did not mourn him. The chamber welcomed the offering. Maren collapsed beside me, fingers digging into the floor. "He didn't want to die," she whispered, as if the universe might correct her if she spoke too loudly. "He didn't. I saw him fight. I saw him fight." "Desire was not required," I said. "Only acknowledgement." She stared at me with horror, as if I had been the one to push him forward. I did not look back. I could not. The void pulsed again. Slow, steady, inevitable. The silhouette rising within it solidified further, now bearing a torso like a towering cathedral spire. Rib-like structures of bone and metal folded outward. The sound of it growing was not a sound at all, but a pressure behind the eyes. Acolyte Jern, no, the vessel-wearing Jern, watched the void like a man watching a sacred sunrise. "The prince's form takes truth from offering," he said. "Your companion's final clarity has fed the awakening. Soon it will speak to you directly." "I do not serve chaos," I replied. The vessel tilted its head as though amused. "You serve knowledge. There is no difference." Maren's voice was small. "That's not true. Knowledge has purpose. Understanding has purpose. Chaos is purpose." The word resonated through the chamber, layered with harmonics beyond hearing, announcing itself like a priest before an altar. The void creature's head, if it was a head, turned toward us. I felt its attention pass over my mind like a hand pressed to glass. Not examining, measuring. Something inside me, some fragment of thought buried deep, whispered back. Jern whispered, "It knows you, Magos Halix. It has known you since the moment you first synchronized your mind to the machine spirits. It knows what you seek. Knowledge, perfection, understanding, completion, the tech priest's path. The thing in the void was not offering corruption. It was offering answer. But the cost would not be measured in flesh alone. The chamber shifted around us. Pathways of braided alloy formed like veins across open stone. We did not walk toward them. They simply moved until we were standing where they wanted us. Maren clutched my shoulder for balance. "Where is it taking us?" she whispered. "To the heart," I answered. Even before we moved, I could feel it. A gravitational pull, not of mass, but of significance. The prince was not stepping into our reality. Our reality was being adjusted to receive it, like a lens focusing, like a door widening. The corridor ahead reshaped into a spiral descending into darkness. Not blackness, darkness with texture, darkness that moved, darkness you could breathe in and taste, metallic and sweet. We descended. The air thickened. My augmetics compensated, filtering compounds I could not identify. Maren stumbled. "I can hear it breathing." "You are hearing your own thoughts reverberate," I said, but I was no longer certain. At the base of the spiral lay a chamber unlike any I had seen. Not built, not carved, grown. The walls curved in perfect organic symmetry, as though ribs of a colossal beast encased us. In the center lay a structure resembling an altar, but altering shape even as I observed it. It was not waiting for sacrifice, it was waiting for choice. Jern stepped forward. "One among you will walk willingly. The prince requires a vessel to speak fully into this plane. One mind, one anchor." Maren pressed herself against me. "Don't, please don't listen. Don't believe it. Magos," but belief was not required, only understanding. My mind raced. The prince was not attempting to annihilate us. It was attempting translation. It needed a medium, a conduit, someone augmented, someone whose mind had already been opened to structured thought, someone like me. Jern extended his hand. "You have spent your life searching for truth. Let the search end. I felt Marin's fingers clutch my arm more tightly. She knew, she saw clarity crossing my features. Margos, she whispered. Please, you are still human. You are still you. Human. A diminishing quantity. Only 11% of my original flesh remained. I had removed weakness piece by piece to become closer to the Omnissiah's ideal. But the Omnissiah does not speak. This being did. I stepped forward. Marin screamed. She grabbed my arm again, dragging herself up to face me. Her eyes were bloodshot, tear-filled, raw. You taught me, she said. That knowledge means nothing without discipline, without choosing what you will and will not allow inside your mind. Do not break your own law. The void pulsed. Her words struck me harder than any warp whisper. Will. Choice. This was not a test of devotion. It was a test of threshold. The prince did not want slaves. It wanted partners. That was far more dangerous. I turned back toward Jern. No, I said. The chamber stilled. Not sound, not motion. Meaning paused. Jern's face shifted, first confusion, then disappointment, then something like admiration. So you decline the gift, he said softly. Then the decision passes to another. Marin inhaled sharply. I realized too late. The prince did not require the most willing. Only the next willing. Marin took a step. Not forward, not back. Just loosened. Her grip faltered. Her will faltered. A single break in her resolve. And the ritual caught her. The altar extended toward her like a hand. I grabbed her, pulling her back, but the floor beneath her softened, forming around her ankles, rising to her knees, pulling her downward. Marin! She looked up at me with wide eyes, not pleading, apologizing. I'm sorry, she whispered. I think it already chose me. The void pulsed, and the chamber answered. Marin did not scream as the altar pulled her downward. That silence was far more horrifying than any cry could have been. Her face remained strangely calm, almost resigned, while her body sank inch by inch into the shifting matter. The altar did not swallow, it absorbed. The surface beneath her was neither metal nor flesh, but something that behaved like both, warm, pliable, alive. I grasped her arms and pulled hard enough that my servos whined. But the substance held her with a pressure not of strength, but of inevitability. It felt like trying to pull someone out of their own reflection. Do not fight, Jern said behind me, voice smooth, full of reverent warmth. She is not being taken. She is being received. Marin's eyes met mine. They were not filled with terror. They were filled with clarity. The clarity of someone beginning to understand something that should not be understood. Magos, she whispered. I think it's showing me something. No, I said, though the word came out more like a prayer than a command. Do not listen. Do not look. Do not accept. But her gaze was already distant. She was already seeing something else. The altar rose along her torso now, climbing like a tide toward her shoulders. I could feel her pulse through my hands, rapid, trembling, but not panicked, almost in awe. Let her go, I said, turning toward Jern. Release her. She is releasing herself, he answered. This is not coercion. This is revelation. My grip tightened involuntarily. My augmetic fingers dug into her arms, not to harm, but to anchor. Marin, I said, voice low, precise, deliberate. The voice I had used once to stabilize initiates during neural uploading rites. Listen to me. Focus on my voice. Focus on structure, order, patterns. Hold to what you can measure. Do you hear me? She blinked. Her breath shivered. Yes, she whispered. And for a moment, I believed we had regained her. But then the whisper came. Not from Jern. Not from the chamber. Not even from the prince. It came from inside her. It remembers, she said, though her lips barely moved. It remembers being below, being forgotten. It remembers the silence of stone, and the pressure of time, and the cold of deep worlds. It remembers waiting. Her voice was not her own anymore. The prince was speaking through her before the transformation had completed. The chamber pulsed in response. The void below shuddered. The silhouette of the prince, still emerging, shifted, expanding, its limbs stretching into clearer form. Wings, if they were wings, unfurled slightly, revealing layers upon layers, of fractal feathers or blades or filaments of pure, unreal geometry. Something like light flickered beneath the surface of Marin's skin. I did the only thing that remained within the limits of logic, doctrine, and devotion. I enacted severance protocol. My right arm's internal mechanism spun and reconfigured, forming a surgical monoblade along the edge of my forearm. The blade glowed faint blue as the power cell hummed. I raised it. To save her, I would need to amputate below the shoulder, separate her from the altar before the absorption reached vital structure. I brought the blade down, and the altar caught it, not blocked, not deflected. It held the blade. The living matter rose around the steel edge, enveloping it, gripping it the way a hand might grip a wrist. My arm locked, servos stalled. Mechanical force output surged and redlined. A warning message flashed across my vision. Torque limit exceeded. Joint integrity at risk. I disengaged power before my augmetic arm snapped at the elbow. Jern watched me, expression soft, not triumphant, not mocking, understanding. You still believe this is a thing you may resist, he said. But you have already formed the connection. The moment you reached for her, your fate was sealed alongside hers. I turned slowly. What connection? I asked. He stepped closer, not threatening, but inevitable. You still think the warp corrupts through force, but the warp corrupts through recognition, through acknowledgement, through the moment the mind says, I see you, I understand you. He leaned in until his face was inches from mine. His borrowed flesh stretched too thin over something far too vibrant beneath. And you, Margos Halix, have spent your life seeking understanding. The altar reached Marin's throat. I could feel her pulse quickening beneath the surface, but her expression was one of surrender, half peace, half loss. I didn't want this, she whispered. I know, I said, and I meant it. Her eyes softened, her lips parted, she exhaled. The altar covered her mouth, then her eyes, then her face. Then she was gone, the surface smoothed. No ripple, no distortion, no residue, as though she had always been part of the altar. I did not speak. There is a kind of silence so complete, the body forgets how to breathe. Jern placed a hand on my shoulder, a gesture of intimacy, of brotherhood, of inevitability. Now, he said, only one offering remains. I turned my head mechanically, slowly, like a turret tracking without emotion. No, I said. He smiled. Yes. The chamber lights pulsed in slow rhythm. The void creature, the prince, now had form, not complete, not final, but present. Its head rose, its eyes, or their equivalent, opened, and I felt it see me. Not my body, not my thoughts, my pattern, my purpose, my name. My neural implant crackled with static as the prince spoke, not in sound, but in pure meaning. Listener, archivist, witness, herald. My knees buckled, not from fear, not from awe, from recognition. For the first time since the station fell silent, I understood the truth. We had never been studying the signal. We had been answering it. And now, with Marin taken and Varlan consumed, the ritual's final step had reached me. The choice was no longer whether I would serve, only how. The prince's gaze, if one could call it a gaze, did not fall upon me in any physical way. There was no pressure, no heat, no psychic force tearing my mind open. No, The prince regarded me the way a concept regards a definition. It recognized what I was, what I had been shaped to be, long before I had ever known it myself. The chamber vibrated softly, the walls flexing like lungs drawing breath. The altar, now smooth and featureless where Maren had vanished, pulsed once, as though acknowledging the prince's awareness of her sacrifice. Jern stood with his hands folded, serene, devotional, a priest before his ascended deity. "You understand now," he said gently. "This is not conquest. This is realignment. The universe shaped itself wrong, Magos Halix. The prince remembers the correct form. We are simply returning to it." "I understand more than you believe," I replied. "Not faith, not surrender, recognition." Jern nodded. "Then you know what must come next." The void beneath the prince widened. The chamber's floor extended in a long, narrow bridge of living alloy, forming a path toward the ascending figure. It did not force me. It simply provided the route. The ritual did not demand obedience. It demanded participation. I took one step, and the bridge vibrated beneath my feet like a plucked string. Data cascaded through my neuronic implants, sensory feeds overlaying my vision in cascading streams of symbols and impossible equations. The prince's geometry was not random. It was patterned, perfect, elegant in a way Mechanicus mathematics only strives to approach. I saw meaning in it, meaning older than language, older than structure, older than thought. The Mechanicus teaches that the universe can be understood if only one acquires enough knowledge, enough clarity, enough data. And yet, this was not knowledge, this was memory. The prince was not invading reality, it was returning to it. My step faltered. A whisper pulsed through the chamber, softer this time, almost comforting, chosen, not forced. I inhaled, automatic and unnecessary. The augmetic lungs did not require oxygen for function. The breath was habit, not need. The biological remainder of me, the last scraps of my humanity, still clung to old rituals. I stepped forward again. Behind me, I heard movement, the remaining 3 troopers shifting, weapons uncertain, wills wavering. They had seen too much, lost too much. Soldiers are trained to fight death. They are not trained to face purpose. One of them spoke, his voice hollow. "Magos, what do we do?" I did not turn. "You maintain your position. You hold your mind. You do not look directly. You do not acknowledge meaning, only form." But they were already failing. One of them, Trooper Yevik, began to laugh quietly, a laughter without joy, without madness, only acceptance. "We were never going to leave this place," he said. "We were always going to be part of it." The other trooper cursed and tried to grab him, but the floor beneath Yevik softened, absorbed his boots, climbed his legs. His laughter dissolved into a choking gasp, then silence. Another sacrifice. The prince grew more defined. The bridge lengthened. I was halfway across now. The void beneath me was not empty. It was depth, layers of worlds folding inward, galaxies collapsing into singular points. The warp reflected like a mirror turned inward on itself. I recognized none of it. I recognized all of it. The prince's form towered above me now, close enough that I could see detail. Its surface was neither flesh nor metal. It was language made matter. Every curve, every line, every joint encoded information. My implants attempted to parse it. They failed, reattempted, failed again. The prince did not hide complexity. It simply exceeded the limits of cognition designed for lesser beings. I could become more. The thought was not mine, but it arrived inside my mind as though it had always been there. I felt myself lean forward. A hand seized my shoulder, not Jern's, the last remaining trooper. His visor was cracked, blood smeared beneath the surface, one eye swollen shut, but his grip was firm. "Magos," he said, voice shaking but present, "you're still here." The bridge pulsed. The prince's attention shifted. The chamber dimmed. I turned to face the trooper. His name came to me slowly. Drexler. He had been quiet, competent, unremarkable. A man who followed orders without complaint. Now his face was twisted with terror and determination. "Do not give it what it wants," he said. "Do not let it finish." I looked at him, and I realized something. The prince did not want my death. It wanted my voice, my mind, my comprehension, my ability to translate it into words, into language, into scripture. "It wants me to carry it," I whispered. Drexler's grip tightened. "Then don't. Fight it. End this. Destroy the core. Destroy the core. The shrine core. The heart of the transformation. If I severed the core's formed geometry, if I rerouted the plasma conduits, if I forced a collapse, the prince might be forced back. Not destroyed, but denied entry. But doing so would mean Marin, Varlan, all consumed. There would be no recovery, no after, no redemption, only severance, irreversible, complete. Drexler saw the calculation forming in my eyes. "Yes," he said, "a death sentence, for all of us." He swallowed hard, "but not for the galaxy." The prince pulsed. "Choose." I turned fully away from it, away from the bridge, away from the impossible horizon, toward the core. My voice rose, not in prayer, but in command. "Drexler, with me." He nodded. We ran. The floor shifted to stop us. The chamber screamed. Jern lunged. The prince's shadow twisted, but I was no longer a witness. I was defiance, and defiance has structure. We charged the shrine core, and I prepared to break it. The shrine core chamber trembled as Drexler and I ran, its shifting geometry reacting to our intent. The bridge we had crossed did not dissolve, but instead curled, like a living limb withdrawing. The prince's silhouette loomed behind us, vast, unfinished, and yet undeniably aware. The chamber pulsed in a steady rhythm, 81 beats, each throb an echo of something ancient waking beneath the crust of Calligra. Drexler kept pace, though his breathing was ragged, and his visor was smeared with dried blood. His weapon was useless here, but he held it anyway, as though the shape of it granted him purpose. Sometimes belief is the last armor a human possesses. "Magos!" he gasped. "What exactly are we doing?" "Interrupting the summoning," I answered, though the words felt fragile in my mouth. "If the shrine core collapses, the ritual cannot complete. The prince's manifestation will be forced to recoil." "Will that kill it?" he asked. "No," I said. "It will only delay it." Drexler gave a short, broken laugh. "Emperor above, we're not even trying to win. We're just trying to make sure we don't lose fast." "Yes," I said, "that is survival." The shrine core came into view again, vast, pulsating, alive. The conduits that once channeled plasma now carried an iridescent warp resonance, cycling faster with each pulse. The core did not radiate heat. It radiated presence, pressing against the inside of my skull, as though attempting to make room for itself. Drexler stopped suddenly, staring. "Magos, look!" Where Marin had vanished, the smooth surface had begun to change. From the altar's surface rose strands of something like hair, silver, luminescent, trembling as though caught between wind and memory. Then fingers. Then the suggestion of a face, but not hers. It was building a new form, a vessel, to be filled. Drexler's hands shook. "We don't have time." "We do not," I agreed. The prince's voice reverberated through the chamber, not heard, but felt. "You do not have to resist. You are already within the design." I ignored it. My augmetic eyes scanned the shrine core structure, identifying stress points and thermal channels. The original reactors had been mechanicus perfect, aligned to tolerances of micrometers. But the new form, the warp-grown lattice, possessed flaws. Warp perfection is never stable. Perfection built from meaning eventually collapses under perception. "There," I pointed. "If we sever the tertiary conduit array, the plasma circulation loop will destabilize. Feedback should cascade, The core will collapse. Drexler nodded, though his expression flickered between resolve and despair. You handle the mechanism. I'll hold off, whatever tries to stop us. As if summoned by the words, something arrived. The corridor ahead darkened. The darkness did not fall, it walked. Figures emerged, one after another, moving in slow, reverent steps. Crew members, tech acolytes, priests, guard auxiliaries, every member of the station we had not yet accounted for. But none of them were alive. Their faces were slack, eyes glazed and unfocused. Their limbs moved with graceful precision, like puppets guided by a single puppeteer. Their mouths opened and closed, but no sound emerged. Drexler raised his rifle. Emperor, forgive us. The closest acolyte reached toward him, not aggressively but softly, as though greeting a long-lost companion. Drexler fired. The last round burned through the acolyte's skull, but the acolyte did not fall. It simply continued walking, bone glowing faintly where flesh charred and peeled away. Magos! Drexler shouted. I see it, I answered. They were not bodies animated by warp madness. They were echoes, imprints, memories given movement. The prince was shaping reality from what it remembered. Drexler screamed and swung the rifle like a club, smashing another echo aside. It fell, limbs bending at impossible angles, but still crawled forward, reaching. I moved. The tertiary conduit array was encased in layers of still-shifting material, half mechanical, half organic, entirely transmuted. I extended my servo blade, slicing through the first layer. Sparks burst upward, splashing like blood. No alarms sounded. The machine spirits were gone. I cut again, and again, and again. Each slice vibrated through my arm, through my spine, through my mind. The shrine core did not resist physically. It resisted with meaning, pushing back with a psychic weight that made my thoughts blur. Drexler shouted, voice growing distant. Magos! There! His words ended in a choked cry. I turned. The echoes had swarmed him. They clung to him, not tearing, not biting, but holding, as though welcoming him into an embrace. His rifle vanished beneath a dozen grasping hands. He kicked, fought, screamed. But their touch seemed to pull something out of him. Not flesh, but will. He met my gaze. Finish it, he rasped. I turned back to the conduit. I carved deeper. Metal became sinew. Sinew became glass. Glass became light. The structure pulsed violently. The prince's voice filled the chamber, vast and calm, like an ocean speaking. You misunderstand, listener. The ritual does not require your death, only your acceptance. I drove the blade deeper. The conduit tore. The shrine core screamed. The chamber rippled. The void shook. The ascending prince convulsed, its form flickering between completion and dissolution. The bridge cracked. The walls buckled. The floor bent inward like a whirlpool of matter and meaning. The altar where Marin had vanished split, releasing a surge of radiant, colourless light. Drexler collapsed, his body hollow, his eyes empty. The shrine core began to collapse inward, folding into a singularity of reverse geometry. The prince's form shuddered, wings curling inward, its silhouette distorting like a reflection in boiling water. I felt its gaze again, not angry, not pained, simply waiting, as though this collapse was not defeat, only delay. The chamber disintegrated around me. The world twisted, space fractured, gravity inverted, and then everything went still. No light, no sound, no station, only me, suspended in perfect, impossible silence. The prince spoke. The door does not close, and I realized the collapse had not severed the connection. It had moved it into me. There was no sensation of falling nor floating. There was no sense of direction, no up or down. I existed in suspension, held in a medium that was not air, not fluid, not void. A thought space, a chamber made of memory and resonance. My systems were active, my biological heartbeat, My augmetic lungs cycled oxygen. My cortical implants processed input. But there was no input to process. No sound, no environment, no world. Only the presence. "You have not denied me," the prince said. "Not in words, not in sound, but in a meaning delivered directly into cognition." I attempted to speak aloud. My voice did not exist. My thoughts echoed instead. "I have not accepted you." A gentle pressure, like hands pressing lightly upon the back of my skull, responded. "Acceptance is not required. Contact is enough." I felt the truth of it. The ritual did not hinge on belief or will. It hinged on proximity, on awareness, on interpretation. To see a thing is to give it form. To understand a thing is to give it shape. To name a thing is to give it power. I had seen the prince. I had understood its intent. I had named it. There was no undoing that. The silence shifted. A scene formed, not a hallucination, not an illusion, but a memory not my own. I saw a temple, not human, not Xenos, an architecture designed around concepts, not physical constraints. Walls curved according to meaning, not material. The air shimmered, shaped by ritual thought. Creatures moved through it, beings of flesh and not flesh, silhouettes anchored only loosely to anatomy. Their forms echoed the prince's fractal geometry. They worshipped not a god. They worshipped a center, an emptiness, a waiting, a promise. Time passed, not linearly, but in expanding layers. A catastrophe occurred. The temple was buried, not destroyed, not forgotten, hidden, buried under pressure and stone and geological time, while the memory of its existence leaked slowly through the bedrock of reality, like heat rising from magma, until someone listened. That someone was us. Then the scene dissolved, and I was back in the silent void. The prince spoke again. "You did not call me. You only answered." I did not respond, not because I could not, because I understood the truth of it. The Mechanicus teaches that the universe is a machine, that everything is circuitry and code and pattern, that if one listens long enough, every rhythm reveals structure. We had listened. We had documented. We had synchronized. And in doing so, we had aligned our minds to the resonance of the prince. The prince had not needed to breach reality. We had opened the door from the inside. "You see clearly now," the prince said. Clarity was not reassurance. Clarity was horror. The void around me rippled. A shape began to form, vague at first, then familiar. A face, not the prince's, Marin's, but not as she had been in life. She was not broken or consumed or hollow. She was serene, radiant, complete. Her eyes glowed with soft luminescence, like starlight reflected on deep water. "Magos," she said. Her voice echoed, not in my skull, not in air, but in memory. "I'm not dead." I forced thought into coherence. "You were taken by the altar. Your physical form was absorbed." "Yes," she said, "but I'm not gone. I see now from the inside. I see what we were trying to become." "What you have become," I corrected. She smiled, gentle, familiar, unbearably human. "No, what you are becoming." The void trembled. The prince's silhouette re-emerged behind her, vast and incomplete, a cathedral of impossible anatomy rising endlessly into the unseen heavens. "Your role is not to perish," the prince said. "Your role is to interpret, to translate, to carry the memory of returning order." "No," I thought sharply. The void pulsed once. "You seek understanding, and I am understanding. Understanding is not safety. Understanding is not enlightenment. Understanding is consumption." I felt something then, a sensation like heat, pressure, resonance, all forming at the base of my skull. The prince was entering, not through flesh, through meaning, through the framework of thought itself. Marin's expression softened in sympathy. "It's already happening," she whispered. "You can't stop it. The ritual was never external. It always required a mind. Mine." I felt my thoughts bend, my identity thinning, my memories aligning to new geometry, my purpose rewriting itself. No, purpose is chosen, not assigned. I forced my cognition into defensive lattice alignment, the same mental discipline used to resist psychic intrusion during noospheric communion rituals. My thoughts arranged themselves into mechanical order: directive, function, protocol, identity. I spoke my designation into myself: Magos Explorator Severian Halix of the Adeptus Mechanicus. The void shuddered. The prince's voice darkened, not anger, but interest. You resist not to deny me. You resist to define me. Yes, because definition is confinement. Definition is structure. Structure is boundary. The prince was limitless only as long as it remained undefined. I was a tech priest. My mind was a machine. Machines categorize. Understanding could be weaponized. I drove my consciousness into full analytic surge, cognition operating at 300% baseline. I did not fight the prince's presence. I studied it, measured its resonance, mapped its harmonic signatures, traced the structure of its meaning. The void flickered. The prince's voice changed. You would name the infinite. I answered, yes. And then, a sound like reality cracking, a shriek, a roar, a shattering of invisible glass. The void collapsed, and I fell back into my body. I was on the shrine floor. The chamber was collapsing. The prince's form was fracturing, wings shattering into shards of light. A rift opened beneath the altar, and something reached through. Something that was not the prince, but older. And I understood. I had not stopped anything. I had only opened the next door. The shrine floor was solid beneath my knees, though I could not recall the moment my body had returned to it. One instant, I was suspended in the thought space of the prince, surrounded by memory and meaning. The next, my physical senses roared back into existence like a failing reactor slamming to life. Sound returned first. The chamber was screaming, not with voices. There were no throats left to produce such noise, but with the sound of reality itself fracturing. The shrine core pulsed violently, its once orderly rhythm collapsing into spasms of chaotic, discordant beats. Metal warped inward, stone bent without cracking. The air shimmered, rippling like heat haze, revealing glimpses of landscapes and skies, not of this galaxy. The prince's half-formed silhouette writhed in the void above the collapsing core. Its shape was destabilizing. Where there had been fractal geometry a moment ago, now there was only flickering light and hollow shadow. Its wings folded and unfolded, each motion peeling reality back like old paint. Drexler lay beside me on the fractured platform. His armor was cracked, his visor shattered, but he still breathed. Barely. He looked at me with one bloodshot eye. You did something. Yes, I answered. My voice was mechanical, flat, stripped of tremor. I gave it definition. Drexler coughed a dry, rasping cough. And that stops it. No. Clarity. Always clarity. It only forces it to reveal what it was waiting for. As if responding to the statement, the void beneath the prince opened further. It did not widen. It deepened. Depth without distance. A drop without measurement. The kind of depth ancient sailors feared when staring into the darkest ocean trenches. Something was rising from it. Something older than the prince. Older than thought. Older than the rules that declared reality should be real. The entire station shook. No, the planet shook. The tectonic plates groaned like leviathans turning in sleep. Above us, the prince's form twisted, contorted, and then calmed. The chaos stabilizing. Not because the prince had regained control, but because its focus had shifted. It was no longer looking at the world around it. It was looking down, into the abyss below, into what was arriving. Jern appeared before us, not walking, not stepping, simply present, as though the world had remembered him incorrectly, and corrected itself to match. His body was translucent now. Veins and bone glowed through skin like stained glass. His mouth moved, but the voice that emerged was not his. "The prince is not the end," the voice intoned. "The prince is the herald." Drexler's breathing hitched. "Herald of what?" Jörn smiled, though his skin cracked from the motion. "Of the one that dreamed when the galaxy was molten. The one that breathed before stars took fire. The one beneath worlds, waiting for memory to ripen again." The void pulsed in time with the words. Something moved deep below. I felt the motion before I saw it. The pressure of a presence so vast and intimate, it might have been the planet's own mind thinking in its sleep. Maren's voice spoke in my memory, not echoing from the chamber, but from the part of my mind that now held her. It remembers waiting, and I understood. The prince had never been the true danger. The prince had been the signal, the knock, the first word of a language that, once spoken, could not be unsaid. The entity below was the sentence. The shrine core cracked. Light erupted upward in a spear of impossible brilliance. Not illumination. Revelation. The light passed through Drexler, through me, through the structure of the station and the crust of the planet, revealing layers of geological history like translucent skin. I saw civilizations turn to ash. I saw oceans boiled away. I saw empires rise and collapse in silence. I saw something sleeping through it all, waiting for acknowledgement, waiting for memory. The prince spoke, not through voices, but through meaning. The world forgets. I remember. The world changes. I remain. Now you remember with me. Drexler pushed himself upright, using his rifle as a crutch. "Margos, tell me we can still stop it." I looked toward the shrine core. The collapse was accelerating. The bridge had already dissolved. The void was widening. The prince was stabilizing its form to act as a conduit. We could not sever the ritual now. We could only choose what it completes as. "There is no stopping it," I said. Drexler's breath shuddered. "But there is shaping it." His eye sharpened. "Then shape it." Jörn, what remained of him, extended his hand toward the void. "Step forward, listener. Bear the memory." I felt the prince's presence settle around me like a mantle. Not domination, not corruption, invitation. To remember, to define, to interpret, to speak for it. "No," Drexler hissed. His voice cracked, but his will held. "That's what it wants. It wants a voice." I stood. "Yes," I said, "and that voice must be mine." The chamber stilled. Jörn's face softened, reverent. Drexler stared at me in wordless horror. The void pulsed like a heartbeat. I walked toward the edge. Each step was heavy, not physically, existentially. I felt myself changing, not in body, in identity. Maren's presence lingered in my mind, quiet, steady, accepting. "We do not disappear," she whispered. "We become direction." The void opened before me. The prince lowered its head, the gesture of one ancient being greeting an equal. I spoke, not aloud, but into the resonance. "I accept definition. I will be the memory. I will be the witness." The abyss answered. The awakening was not the prince. It was me. The moment I accepted the role, witness, interpreter, memory, the world around me changed. Not in the way matter changes form, nor the way warp corruption reshapes flesh. This was different. It was perception itself that shifted, as though every sensory organ, every neural relay, every cognitive filter I possessed had been turned inside out and reoriented toward a truth too large to comprehend directly. I did not fall into the void. I stepped into it. The surface beneath my feet ceased to be surface. Solid reality gave way to layered thought. The chamber did not disappear. It broadened. Its boundaries pulled back like curtains, revealing not another place, but another version of this place, hidden beneath the first. The shrine core still pulsed, but now its rhythm felt less like a call and more like a translation key, unlocking strata of meaning beneath meaning. Drexler called out my name. I turned. He stood at the collapsing platform's edge, one arm outstretched, fingers trembling, not with fear, but with grief. "Magos," he began. His voice broke. There were no words in the Imperial lexicon for what he saw happening. My shape had begun to disarticulate. Not physically, not agonizingly, but gently, like a machine being dismantled down to its blueprint layer. I could feel my identity dividing into conceptual frameworks: function, memory, purpose, origin. Some remained solid, others became permeable. Not erased, just porous. "Drexler," I said, though the sound that emerged no longer entirely belonged to my voice. "Do not follow." He shook his head violently. "You can fight this. I've seen you resist things far stronger than—" I raised a hand. The gesture stopped him, not by force, by understanding. For the first time, he saw the thing I had always been beneath the chrome and logic: a man who sought meaning, a man drawn to the unexplainable, a man who did not fear the unknown, only the incomplete. Drexler's shoulders sagged. "You were always going to choose it," he whispered. The void pulsed beneath me, not a summons, a confirmation. Seen. The prince's presence remained beside me, not towering now, not distant, but aligned. Its form shifted to mirror my scale, not out of mimicry, out of recognition. It did not need to overpower me. It needed to be understood. Fragments of Marin's voice echoed in my mind, not as memory, as continuity. We become a direction. Yes. The void deepened. The world of matter and machine began to thin as my awareness widened into structures that Mechanicus doctrine had only ever pointed toward indirectly. Patterns of causality, flows of possibility, the scaffolding beneath reality where choice and meaning are the primary forces. And beneath it all, something vast, not a being, not consciousness, a foundation. The ancient thing sleeping beneath Calligra's crust was not a creature waiting to rise. It was a principle waiting to be reactivated. The prince was merely its herald, its executor, its translator. The forgotten god beneath the stone was not a single mind. It was memory itself. Everything that had ever been known, everything that had ever been forgotten. A reservoir of meaning so deep it could drown suns. I felt myself drifting toward it, not pulled, not drawn, invited. I could step forward and lose the boundaries of the self, dissolving into the totality of understanding without suffering or fear. And I almost did. Almost. But Drexler was still watching me, not as a soldier, as a witness. He represented something the prince could not predict: human refusal to be rewritten. "Magos," he said, his voice steadier now. "If you go, none of this ends. It just continues. Through you." He wasn't wrong. My joining was not completion. It was expansion. The ritual needed my perspective, my vocabulary, my capacity to turn perception into language. If I crossed fully, the prince would not merely exist. It would spread, through words, through ideas, through memory itself. Drexler took a step toward me. The void rippled. "Stay," he said. "Stay with us, with the Imperium, with those who still fight." A long silence followed, not silence of absence, silence of recognition. The prince spoke. "You may return." The meaning hit me like cold iron. You may return, but you will carry what you have seen. You will no longer belong to them. You will no longer belong to yourself. You will belong to memory. To go back would not be salvation. It would be witnesshood. To remain would be dissolution. No self, no responsibility, no regret. I chose the harder fate. I stepped back from the abyss. The void tightened. The prince recoiled slightly. Not in pain, not in anger, but in adaptation. It restructured itself around my refusal, and the shrine core collapsed. Reality snapped shut like a trap. The chamber imploded inward, not violently but smoothly, like a bubble collapsing in water. The void receded. The prince's silhouette dissolved into fractured after-images. The altar cracked, then liquefied, then evaporated into ash. Drexler and I were thrown to the floor of what remained of Research Station Epsilon 9. Its metal scorched, its walls warped, its corridors silent. The ritual was interrupted. Not ended. Interrupted. I staggered upright. Drexler leaned heavily on me. "Are we alive?" he asked. "Yes," I answered. But the answer did not feel like truth, because I felt the prince inside me. Not a presence, not a voice, a memory, and it was still remembering. Drexler's breathing slowed. "What now?" I looked at the fractured shrine, at the cracked planet beneath us, at the horizon of meaning I now carried. "We leave," I said. And then I met his gaze. Old flesh, dying flesh, frail flesh. "We warn them." Drexler swallowed. "Will they believe us?" "No." My voice was steady, unbroken, already changing. "But they will remember." We emerged from the remains of the shrine into a corridor that no longer resembled any part of Research Station Epsilon 9. The walls, once uniform plasteel and blessed steel rivets, were now warped into arching forms, like the insides of great bones. Every surface bore faint traces of the symbol, the one that had begun as a pulse, then a whisper, then a doorway. But now the symbol was fading. Not gone, simply dormant, waiting. Drexler walked beside me, though walked was a generous term. He limped, leaning heavily on his rifle as a makeshift crutch. Blood darkened the fabric beneath his armor. His breaths came slow and ragged, yet he remained conscious, willed himself to remain conscious. It was the only resistance left to him. The air was still, no alarms, no mechanical hum. The machine's spirits were quiet, their presence somewhere between hibernation and mourning. Without their whispering chorus, the silence of the station felt cavernous, oppressive, like being inside the ribcage of something enormous. "Magos," Drexler said after a long quiet stretch. "We should confirm if anyone else is alive." I nodded. Not because the logic compelled me, but because he needed the gesture. We moved through what remained of the central gallery. Here the bodies had not been absorbed. They lay scattered across the floor. Guards, adepts, tech priests, faces slack, mouths open, eyes unfocused. Not dead, not sleeping, suspended. Their bodies had become shells without will, without identity, not corpses, hollowed memory containers. Drexler knelt beside one of them, a woman wearing the rank markings of an engineer. He placed 2 fingers on her throat, pulse, breathing, warm flesh, but her eyes did not move, not even to track motion. "Emperor," he whispered, "they're still in there." "Yes," I said. "Can we bring them back?" "No." The answer cut him. I saw it. He looked at me, not accusing, but pleading for contradiction. "Why not?" he asked. Because I could see their minds now, not with psychic sight, not with warp sense, with memory. "They have already been used," I said. "Their identities have been stripped and engraved into the prince's awakening. Their bodies remain only because the ritual was interrupted. Their minds are no longer separate." Drexler bowed his head. His voice came out as a whisper scraped raw. "So they're gone." "In the sense that you mean the word," I answered. "Yes." His hand tightened around his rifle, not in violence, in grief. We moved on. The deeper we went, the less the station resembled a structure. Metal plating softened into smooth surfaces like polished stone. Doors had become arches, corridors had become avenues. It felt like walking through the memory of a city long since erased from existence, and all of it pulsed faintly in time with my heartbeat. No, not my heartbeat. The prince's. The memory inside me was not silent. It watched through my eyes. It listened through my ears. It thought alongside my thoughts, not overriding them, but aligning with them, like a second voice in perfect harmonic resonance. Drexler did not speak again until we reached the hangar access. The massive blast doors had fused shut, not from mechanical failure, but because the metal had grown together, willed into seamless unity. Even if transports remained operational, we would not be leaving through this path. Drexler leaned his forehead against the sealed surface. We're trapped. No, I said. He turned, hope flickering despite exhaustion. Then how do we get out? We do not need the station's doors, I said. The station is no longer singular. The boundary between it and the prince's domain is weakened. We only need to travel where meaning allows travel. He stared at me. He did not understand. But he believed I understood. And for now, that was enough. I placed my palm against the fused door. The memory within me moved, not as command, not as spell, but as association. My mind recalled the structure of the door as it had been, not as it was, and reality aligned. The metal softened beneath my hand. Lines reformed. Mechanisms reasserted themselves. The blast door unfolded like petals opening. Drexler breathed out, half shocked. Magos, what are you now? The question was not accusation. It was wonder and sorrow. I searched for an answer that did not fracture him further. I am still myself, I said carefully, but I am no longer only myself. He nodded once, slowly, accepting without understanding. We stepped into the hangar. The sky beyond the station's outer walls was no longer the sky of Calligra. Storm clouds churned in silent spirals. Lightning flickered without sound. The air shimmered with the residue of warp resonance, but the fabric of reality remained mostly intact. The catastrophe was localized. For now, a single transport remained intact on the hangar deck, a short-range shuttle, unarmed, functional. It would not survive orbital interception. It would not outrun a patrol frigate. It would not evade a strike cruiser, but it could leave. We boarded. Drexler collapsed into the co-pilot's seat, securing belts with trembling hands. I took the pilot's position. The controls responded instantly. Machine spirits recognized me, not because I had authority, but because I now contained memory older than their design. The shuttle rose. The station fell, away beneath us. From above, Epsilon 9 resembled a scar carved into the surface of Calligra. The ground surrounding it was fractured, as though something enormous had pressed upward from below and then withdrawn. But the planet had not broken, because the awakening was not physical, it was conceptual. As the shuttle ascended, Drexler stared at me again, one question finally finding voice. Are we safe now? I watched the surface of Calligra shrink below us. No, I said. He closed his eyes. I did not speak again, not until we breached atmosphere and the void of space opened before us in cold silence. Then softly, I said the only truth that mattered. The galaxy will remember. The prince stirred within my mind, as it must, for I was now its herald, not servant, not slave, not disciple, witness. The shuttle drifted in near silence, its engines reduced to a steady low hum. Stars stretched beyond the viewport, cold, endless, indifferent. Calligra was already a shrinking orb behind us, its atmosphere still rippling with faint, unnatural storms. Nothing pursued us, no alarms sounded, no Vox traffic hailed our escape. The absence of response was more terrifying than an attack. Drexler leaned back in the co-pilot's chair, head tilted toward the ceiling, chest rising and falling in slow, unsteady rhythm. His armor was cracked open at the abdomen where he had taken the blow earlier. The wound was internal, deep. I did not need medical diagnostics to know his survival probability was rapidly declining. He opened one eye. You haven't said anything since we reached orbit. There is much to consider, I replied. He snorted, a sound closer to a cough than laughter. You mean much to fear? No, I said. I am beyond fear. He turned his head slowly to look at me. That's what scares me, Margos. The controls flickered before me, not malfunctioning, but responding. The machine spirits recognize my presence, but not as a tech priest. They recognize something else within me. A deeper pattern, a resonance. The prince's memory stirred at the edge of thought, not speaking, not intruding, but observing, like a scholar leaning over my shoulder. Drexler sat up slightly. We need to report to someone, anyone, the Inquisition, the Mechanicus, the Navy. Someone has to hear what happened. Yes, I said. But, he prompted, if we return now, before I understand the full nature of the memory I carry, I will not be reporting the truth. I will be reporting fragments, interpretations. And fragmented knowledge is more dangerous than ignorance. Drexler stared out the viewport. So what are we doing? We are traveling to a relay station in the outer belt, I said. It is automated, unstaffed. Its systems cannot be influenced by mortal persuasion or psychic suggestion. I will encode a report there. Will they believe it? No. Will they act on it? No. Then what good is the report? It will be remembered. My voice shifted slightly. Not tone, not volume, but resonance. Drexler flinched. The prince had spoken with me, not through me. He took several slow breaths, collecting enough strength to sit upright. Tell me something, Magos, he said quietly. Do you still know who you are? I did not answer at once. The question required precision. Identity is not a constant. Identity is a relationship between memory, purpose, and context. I searched myself deliberately, as one might inspect the structural integrity of a machine. My name is Magos Explorator Severian Helix, I said. Good, he murmured. But, I continued, I am also something else. His jaw tensed. What? I am the one who remembers the prince. I am the witness to its awakening. I am the tether point through which it regards this galaxy. Drexler stared at me, eyes hollow, exhausted. So we didn't escape, he whispered. We left, I corrected. Escape implies something remains behind that was contained. Nothing was contained. He grimaced. I suppose I should be grateful you're telling me the truth. Yes, I said. He let his head rest back against the chair. His voice softened, no longer soldier hard, but human. I don't want to die, he said. You may yet live, I replied. The truth followed a moment later, but you will not live unchanged. Drexler laughed again, a small, broken sound. None of us are unchanged. The shuttle continued toward the relay. I monitored long-range auspex. No ships, no interference, not even warp signatures of interest. Caligra, for the moment, was quiet, but not dormant. Like a mine seeded beneath the galaxy's floor, waiting for the vibration that would trigger detonation. Hours passed. The shuttle docked with the relay platform, an automated cylindrical hub rotating in slow drift. We boarded through the airlock. Drexler nearly collapsed but forced himself to remain standing. The relay's interior lights flickered on with stale, cold lumens. No living crew, no footsteps, no voices. Only the quiet hum of machines performing their endless, unobserved work. I approached the primary Vox terminal. The interface awakened, detecting my identity and granting priority command access. It displayed transmission parameters, encryption tiers, protocol overlays. It waited. I began, not speaking, not typing, but transmitting thought structure to machine. The report flowed into the relay systems. Not story, not confession, not warning. Memory, unfiltered, unordered, unforgiving. The truth of the prince. The pre-human temple beneath Caligra. The ritual of awakening. The collapse of Epsilon 9. The shift in the observer mind. The new state of memory awareness. The uncompleted arrival. The machine absorbed it all. Data, implication, meaning. The prince stirred at the edge of my consciousness. You are performing as required. I did not respond. Drexler leaned heavily against the nearest support column. His eyes were half-lidded, his pulse faint, his skin pale. Magos, what happens if the Inquisition reads that? They will burn the relay, I said. They will quarantine this sector. They will silence the record, and the prince will remain in memory. Drexler nodded slowly. His breathing grew shallower. I knelt beside him. He looked up at me, and for the first time since the station, there was no fear in his eyes, only understanding. "You're not here to destroy it," he said softly. "No, you're here to make sure it's remembered." "Yes," he exhaled, the last breath he had left. His body sagged, his pulse stopped. I closed his eyes. There was no prayer to offer, only acknowledgement. He had fulfilled his function. I rose and returned to the terminal. The report was complete. I sent it, not to one destination, to every connected Imperial archive node within transmission range. The galaxy would not believe, but it would remember. The prince's presence settled beside my thoughts, not intrusive, not demanding. "We are almost complete." "No," I said. "We have only begun." When the transmission finished, the relay station fell silent. No alarms responded. No Imperial encryption countermeasures activated. The data had left its origin faster than any order could stop it. A truth sent into the void, unbound. I stood before the terminal, motionless, though motion meant little now. Every movement I made felt like an afterthought, an echo of a decision made elsewhere. The prince's memory coiled gently within my consciousness, not commanding, not whispering, merely existing alongside my thoughts. A companion, a shadow, a mirror. The relay lights dimmed. Power conservation protocols engaged automatically, unaware that the message they had just relayed would reshape the galaxy. Drexler lay where I had left him, his body still, his expression peaceful. He had not died in fear. He had died in comprehension. Very few souls in the Imperium are granted that. I lowered my head in acknowledgement, not prayer, not mourning, recognition. A door slid open behind me. The shuttle's airlock remained active. I did not need to breathe, but I inhaled anyway. Organic habit persists even when irrelevance has been proven. I stepped back aboard the vessel. The stars awaited. The void, true void, not warp space, not psychic domain, spread in every direction. Cold, unchanging, eternal. It should have felt vast. It did not anymore, because I carried something vaster within me. As the shuttle detached from the relay and drifted forward, I felt the prince stretch in my mind, unfolding not in size but in clarity. I no longer needed to interpret what it was. I understood. The prince had no name because names are borders. The prince had no form because forms are cages. The prince was memory given direction, every forgotten history, every erased culture, every grave world, every silence, all of it preserved, waiting for recognition. And I had recognized it. "Do you regret your choice?" the prince asked, not in voice, but in alignment. I answered truthfully. "No. Regret is for those who believed another future was possible. I knew the path of my life had always led here. Every data core I had opened, every relic I had studied, every fragment of pre-imperial thought I had tried to reconstruct, all of it was preparation. The Imperium teaches stability through ignorance. The Mechanicus teaches stability through structure. Both are correct. Both fail. Because the universe is not stable. The universe is memory, decay, and return. The prince did not seek to destroy the Imperium, nor to conquer the galaxy, nor to unmake reality. The prince intended to remind existence of what it came from, to return the galaxy to continuity. I adjusted the shuttle's course, not toward Imperial space, not toward a fleet, not toward salvation, toward the warp, not to enter it, to touch it. The border between real space and the immaterium shimmered ahead, like a storm seen through glass. My implants detected gravitational flux, psychic interference patterns, temporal distortion waves. None of it mattered. The warp did not frighten me. The warp recognized me, not as prey, not as trespasser, as herald. "You will speak for us," the prince said. "No," I answered. "I will speak with you." The distinction mattered. A herald declares. A witness remembers. I had become the latter. The shuttle approached the threshold of reality, engines resounding through the hull. Colors twisted in ways no biological eye could interpret. The void distorted into layers of meaning and intent. The warp was not chaos. The warp was memory without form. The prince pulsed in acknowledgement. We begin. But something in me, something human, something stubborn, spoke one final truth. Not yet. The warp rippled. Explain. I closed my eyes. I saw Drexler's hand gripping his rifle. I saw Marin's eyes the moment she understood. I saw Varlan step willingly into the void. I saw every acolyte, every priest, every initiate who had ever died in pursuit of understanding. They had not been weak. They had not been blind. They had been unfinished. Memory alone is insufficient. Memory needs carriers. Carriers need purpose. I opened my eyes. To begin, the galaxy must listen. The prince understood. Not approval. Not denial. Alignment. The shuttle swung away from the warp threshold. A new course set. Not random. Not aimless. Toward a world where memory is forbidden. A shrine world. A fortress world. A world built on ritual silence. A world where truth would be most dangerous. The prince radiated quiet satisfaction. Yes, speak where they fear speaking. I felt no triumph, only inevitability. The stars flowed past in slow drift. The warp pulsed in distant anticipation. Calligra dwindled into forgotten dust behind me. My voice, my new voice, spoke into the quiet. I am Severian Halix, Magos, explorer, witness. I carry the first memory. I speak the forgotten truth. I am the herald of the returning. I did not shout. I did not pray. I simply remembered. And memory is the first act of creation. The prince answered, then creation begins. The stars did not change. The galaxy did not tremble. No great cataclysm occurred. No demon host tore the veil. Only awareness shifted. Quietly, subtly, irrevocably. Somewhere, in the cold archives of a distant forge world, a tech priest paused mid-prayer, unsure why a name he had never heard before suddenly seemed familiar. Somewhere, in the vaults of the Inquisition, a sealed data packet arrived with no recorded source. Somewhere, in the dreams of a dying astropath, a symbol pulsed, 81 beats, again and again and again. Not loud, not violent, not immediate. Inevitability does not rush. The shuttle continued on. The prince was silent, not gone, never gone, simply waiting for me to speak again. I will, when the time is correct, when memory ripens, when truth begins to return.